to make a proposal for statutes that is not in accordance with the law of the Catholic Church, so that the Pope Francisco is the one who gets involved, since according to the motu proprio of August 8, 2023, the Pope Francisco makes it very clear that the statutes of the personal prelatures can be emanated. That is, if the proposal that Ocaries sends is not in accordance with the law, the Pope can issue other different statutes.
Emitir otros estatutos distintos.
So given that possibility, I believe that this is a possibility that is getting closer and closer, because if not, the prelate would not have made these statements. Above all, these harsh statements, which I already say may not be textual, that they are the notes of a vicar, that the law is a garment that can protect, can preserve, but can also corrupt and even destroy. In other words, in some way Ocaries is seeing now, Ocaries and those who accompany him in the General Council are seeing that the statutes that may be imposed on them by the Holy See may be seen as something dangerous for them. And they are already beginning to get into the trenches and say that whatever comes, there is the possibility of being whatever in law, but not in fact, because in fact they plan to continue being and doing what they have always done or wanted to do. Man, I think that once again it seems to me that O'Carey is wrong in the analysis of the environment, because the environment that existed at that time, year 1972, which curiously was the year of the Opus Dei, in which more members whistled in the entire history of Opus Dei, because it is different. It is different from the environment that exists now. I have already said on some occasion that the case of Torre Ciudad is a bit like a small-scale scenario of what may end up happening on a large scale with the entire Opus Dei, and it is a struggle to see who can do more, if the Opus Dei or the Holy See. Saying that, imagine, for example, well, I don't know, that I say, look, I have a different opinion about traffic rules, and I believe that for me, red traffic lights are green and green traffic lights are red. And when I see a red light, I go and jump it.
Para mí, los semáforos en rojo son verdes y los verdes son rojos. Y yo cuando veo un semáforo en rojo, voy y me lo salto.
Why? Because for me, the important thing is life, not law. And if it turns out that there is someone who sets rules for me that I don't agree with, then for me, the important thing is life, and I do what I want, right? So, well, if I want to run over a little old lady who is passing through a zebra crossing, then I'll run over her. And if I want to go 120 kilometers per hour on an urban road, then I'll go. So, in short, it's a bit like saying, well, we are in the church, but we don't give a damn what the rules say, what the law says, etc. Of course, the complaint that a group of former members of Opus Dei filed, basically what came was to denounce institutional regulatory fraud. I repeat, institutional fraud on the part of Opus Dei to the Holy See, because Opus Dei for years and years, and now he continues to do the same thing. He has taken as a normative reference point those 46 documents that he has kept hidden from the Holy See for years and years, and that we have presented all of them one by one to the Holy See.
Y que nosotros los hemos presentado todos, uno por uno, en la Santa Sede.
And they
los
didn't give a
estatutos les
damn
han
about the
echado un pimiento,
statutes to the
hasta
point
el
that they
punto de
ended up
que
translating
terminaron
them because
traduciéndolos
the
porque en
Opus
Opus
books
libros
were
estaban
translated,
traducidos, pero
but they
nunca
never
los tradujeron.
translated
Es
them.
más, en el artículo
Furthermore, in Article
193 de las
193 of
constituciones
the
del Opus
Opus
Dei de
Dei Constitutions of
1950, el
1950,
fundador del Opus
the
Dei
founder of
prohibía
Opus Dei prohibited
traducir del
translating those
latín
constitutions
esas
and any
constituciones y los
subsequent
estatutos
statutes from
posteriores que
Latin.
hubiera. Y se
And it was
prohibía
also prohibited to
también
make
dar a
those
conocer
statutes,
esos
those
estatutos, esas
constitutions known to the
constituciones a
members
los
of Opus
miembros de la
Dei.
Iglesia. O
In
sea
other
que
words,
siempre
they
han
have always
funcionado
functioned
al
outside
margen
the
de la
church.
Iglesia. Y
And
ahora
now they plan to stay the
piensan
same.
seguir
They
igual.
plan to stay the same.
Piensan seguir igual. Yo
No, man, I know that many people watch these discussions, right? Of the order of 4, we have about 4,000 visits per week, right? I hope that some high Vatican dignitary will see it. I would like him to see them, and if he could hear me now, I would tell him that it is not at all exaggerated to ask for the suppression of Opus Dei. It is not at all exaggerated, and to ask that the priests incarnated in the prelature be found a dignified exit where they can be happy with their priesthood in a particular church where they do not have to be subjected to so much incongruity.
Una salida digna en donde puedan ser felices con su sacerdocio, en una iglesia particular en donde no tengan que estar sometidos a tanta incongruencia.
And of course, saying that what the Pope says on normative matters are opinions and that I do what I want, hey, that is like immediately intervening in Opus Dei and making it disappear from the church and creating a managing commission or whatever. But cut short a situation like this because the prelate is already in open rebellion against the Pope.
Y crear una comisión gestora o lo que sea, pero cortar por lo sano una situación así, porque ya el Opus Dei, o sea, el prelado ya está en abierta rebeldía contra el Papa.
I don't know if what I have read is that it couldn't be said more clearly. It cannot be said clearer. Sorry. Since there are only a few minutes left and Guillermo has been raising his hand for a long time, I think it's best for Guillermo to finish all this. And I'll leave the other 7 topics that I was thinking of talking about for next week, of course. Once again, I haven't been able to talk about everything, but oh well.
Well, Guillermo, go ahead. And then also, someone else is pending, but I don't see the hand now. Well, Guillermo, continue.
Well, now that Monday marks 95 years of Opus Dei, I think that talking about the statutes, well, for many people in Opus Dei, I think not. The issue of the statutes is very high. They don't understand it. Perhaps this is at the level of canonists, people on the council, etc., the ordinary supernumerary. Perhaps he is happy with belonging to a group, because perhaps the spiritual does not attract him, but he belongs to a group. The problem, I feel, is also an issue that is coming up. It is the issue of demographics in Opus Dei. For example, in Mexico this year 3 priests died and 3 priests were ordained. That is, the growth of the clergy in Mexico has been 0, right? When there were years, furthermore, around 2018, 2019, 2020, where not a single Mexican was ordained. So, I feel that the legal aspect, there is the fight, that is what the issue that is talked about is the most seen, so to speak. But the demographic issue clearly comes to hit Opus Dei even harder. The 100 years are going to arrive, very diminished. Furthermore, I directly believe that the figure of the numerary will have disappeared. It will clearly be a seminarian who enters Opus Dei as a layman with the sole reason of being ordained a priest. So I feel that yes to a supernumerary. To an agregado, to an auxiliary numerary you say, we are going to do like the Brotherhood of the Holy Water. They are not going to have a major problem, and they are not going to leave Opus Dei because of that, are they? No, because they are happy to see other people who go, and it is more of a social gathering to join a circle than a spiritual thing. So I say, I feel that before the legal issue that is an issue at the church level with Opus Dei, the demographic thing is going to hit Opus Dei first. That's my comment.
Thank you very much, Guillermo.
Excuse me. Now, you mentioned the demographic thing. I want to tell you something. In the Romana Bulletin, which was published this week, number 75, there are those who died in the last half of the year 22. They are 581. Of those 581, 13 are numerary priests. What does that mean? So every year, 1,200 members of Opus Dei die.
581, 13 son sacerdotes numerarios. ¿Eso qué quiere decir? Quiere decir que cada año mueren 1.200 miembros del Opus Dei.
Every year, 25, 26, 24, 28 priests of Opus Dei die. The ordinations of numerary priests in recent years have been as follows. This year there have been 25. Last year there were 24. The previous one was 29. The previous one was 31. And the previous one was 33. That is to say, as Guillermo just said, the data from Mexico that 3 have died and 3 have been ordained can be extrapolated to the total of the prelature. That is to say, the demographic growth of Opus Dei, the vegetative deaths of numerary priests are equivalent to the number of ordinations of numerary priests. But we must also count the permanent priests who leave because they either join another diocese or because they become secularized or simply because the Pope appoints them bishops, which is another way of leaving the prelature. Specifically today, the Pope has appointed a numerary priest as Bishop of Helsinki. That it was more outside than inside. It is a way of leaving Opus Dei, naming him a bishop. In Spain, for example, there was one who was the Bishop of Burgos. Then Monsignor Carles was also a numerary, the Bishop of Almeria. Casares was also a numerary. Anyway, there were several who had been numerary priests, and who ended up being bishops, because one of the ways to leave Opus Dei is for the Pope to name you a bishop. It's a very diplomatic way of saying, look, everyone's happy. He who leaves, leaves as a bishop. Opus Dei doesn't look bad, and that's it. But I want to say that vegetative growth is 0, but we must also count the cures that go away.
It's very clear. As they told us, life is much more important than the laws, and life will very quickly take care of precisely the matter, because in the end, there may not even be anyone to have the legal discussion with.
Look, another piece of information follow. This course spent in Spain.
Let's take a few extra minutes today.
This past year in Spain, only 18 numerarios have whistled, when 40 years ago, 18 numerarios whistled only in the center of San Rafael de Cordoba, where I live, for example. They were whistling 18. Man, I can say that when I did the study center in Santillana, in the first year that I did the study center, from January to June in Santillana, 35 numeraries and 5 supernumeraries were called. That has already gone down in history. I can tell you that, from what I have been able to follow, that in the last 25 years there have been like 2 periods, which are the first 15 years. That is, from 1998 to 2013, where 90% of those who whistled have left. I am referring to numeraries in Spain. But in the last 10 years, almost no one has whistled. Furthermore, it must be taken into account that if 18 numerarios are called in a course in Spain, of those 18, the 18 are not incorporated into the study center, but perhaps 15 or 10 will be incorporated into the study center. And of those who join, maybe they don't finish the 10. And of those who finish, in a matter of 5 more years,